Hey guys, if you're enjoying the content I've been putting up, be sure to subscribe so you always know when a new video pops up. Now that we got that part out of the way, let's get into the video. Final Fantasy XIV is a massive game with thousands of hours of content. What I'm going to do here is break down some of the major plot points for those of you who want to know more about Eorzea, but may not have time to experience it all firsthand. This time, we're covering the story of the Dancers of Raz-Aden. When the Warrior of Light returns to Limsa Lominsa after doing a lot of adventurous stuff like fetch quests, killing primals, fetch quests, fighting Ascians, fetch quests, returning to the Waking Sands, and more fetch quests, she sees people of the city are extremely excited about a troupe of traveling dancers from Raz-Aden who came to put on a show for them. Who wouldn't want to see the foreigners from across the sea display their skills, so of course you go to check them out. The crowd is excited to see Ranamigo dance while other members of Troupe Falcium play exotic music. However, one woman's mutterings draws your attention away from the performance. She apologizes, but after looking you up and down, she smiles and comments on how graceful you look before letting you finish the show. When Rana's performance is over, the woman introduces herself as Nashmira, the leader of Troupe Falcium, and Rana's teacher. She doesn't beat around the bush and asks you outright if you ever thought about dancing. It's not exactly what you'd think. Dancers have many dances. They are the ones that they perform to entertain people. Then they're the ones they use on the battlefield. The dance that Troupe Falcium uses is called the Kriegsdans, a war dance that is even older than this city. Along with the dance, they use throwing chakrams that don't look too pleasant to be hit with. Skills that the Warrior of Light could definitely use, since the dancers have mystical abilities that do all types of things. They're basically mages who twirl and throw boomerangs at people. Who wouldn't want to do that? The main reason Nashmira brought the troupe to Eorzea is to try and ease the tensions of the people with a bit of entertainment. The constant wars with the Garleans, gods, and beast tribes is taxing on the minds of the common people, and Nashmira thinks that the troupe can give a bit of peace. But she was injured during the trip, and Rana is the only other dancer that she brought. The girl is good, but doing the entire tour alone may be too much, which is why she asked you to join. Honestly, the Warrior of Light would have helped out even if she didn't get anything out of it. Getting trained to be a dancer is an added bonus. After accepting the offer and becoming a part of the troupe, Rana lets you know that she's happy you joined, but you'll never be better than she is. I have noticed that while the Warrior of Light excels at everything when it comes to battles where you're using the echo and such, your teachers of the various arts do tend to be as good as you or better for the most part, so Rana's statement might be true. After Nashmira gives you a change of clothes that turns out to not be the gear that Rana was wearing, which I was sad to find out was the level 80 job gear that you get much later, she fills you in on the troupe's plan. There are 4 places they intend to visit: Ul'dah, Gridania, Ishgard, and Alamigo. But since the Dragon Song War only just ended, and the Garleans are still fighting in Alamigo, it may be safer to save those trips for a little later. However, there's one more issue. They aren't exactly rolling in money, and they need someone to sponsor their trip. The fact that they left their homeland without enough money to fund their expedition has to be the dumbest thing I've heard in a while, but one of Nashmira's friends from Eorzea introduced her to a merchant who likes to promote different forms of creative expression. The man has agreed to fund the tour if they give him a private performance. A good one. Something special that he's never seen before. At first, Nashmira couldn't think of anything since the man is probably extremely well traveled and most likely seen a lot, but with you joining the troupe, she finally came up with an idea. The show will be Rana guiding you through the beginning stages of being a dancer in a performance she calls A Flower Blooms on the Battlefield. As the final act, Rana will play the role of a villain trying to kill you in the most flashy way possible, while you do the same while trying to stay alive. And trust me, Rana is going to get very into the role. Now that the idea is ironed out, you head to meet Nashmira's contact at Costa del Sol, who turns out to be Gegaruju, the not-so-bright connoisseur of all things fine, elegant, and catgirl. He's an idiot. In fact, when I have time, I'm going to put together a montage of all the times he looks stupid and just post them for your viewing pleasure. Idiot though he may be, he's very rich, and since you've had dealings with him before, mainly when you were getting ready to fight Titan and hunting for an extremely rare wine for a member of the Prima Vista's crew, he's shocked to see you dancing since adventuring should have paid you way more. Clearly he hasn't seen how little Gil comes from quest rewards, but I digress. Seeing you there makes him even more excited for the show, and it is something to see. Things start off slow so you can get the feel of your new weapons and abilities. Then Rana dashes in and does a good job trying to kill you, complete with pulling off some moves that I have yet to see any dancer do. Mainly because she admits that all the explosions were things she set up beforehand to make the show more flashy. Which made sense, because during the fight she seemed more like a blue mage than a dancer, but her plan worked, and Gegaruju loved the show. He is more than willing to fund your exploits, if Rana sticks around for a bit. He wants to add her to his group of personal catgirl dancers who he pays quite well, but since she's part of a dancing troupe already, she turns him down. He tries to blackmail her, but a threat from the person who took down Titan changes his tune. He even offers to put in a good word with the Syndicate in Ul'dah, the group of powerful people who actually run the city, if Rana will show him some more of her dance moves before you all leave. She's more than eager to do that, since it's always fun to perform your craft in front of an audience who enjoys what you do. Gegaruju is as good as his word. After a short time, he gets the Syndicate to agree to host your troop's performance, so it's off to Ul'dah you go. Nashmira thinks it'll be a good idea to put the show on in Stone's Throw, one of the poor refugee settlements outside of the city. The troupe doesn't think it's all that great of an idea, but Nashmira thinks it's perfect, and since she's in charge, that's what's gonna happen. Mainly because of the Kriegstance's power to clear people's minds and hearts of worry. Their whole purpose is to bring joy to those who are suffering. That was their goal in Limsa. However, the pirate city's patrons don't really have the same stress level as others due to their rampant consumption of ale. Ul'dah's an entirely different animal. The city feels gloomy, especially in the areas full of refugees, so the troops' gifts should work wonders there. However, before you can even go and see your chosen site, a member of the Brass Blades runs up ordering you to avoid the place. There have been protests and riots in the area, mainly aimed at Ul'dah's rich and powerful, but the Syndicate doesn't want their honored guests getting hurt if the people turn their anger elsewhere. The guard doesn't seem to realize that the entire troop can fight, and it is their job to quell the unrest of the people. Despite that, he's still not eager to let the dancers do their thing, but since you are an adventurer, you are allowed to try your hand at dealing with the problem. Rana is eager to get to it, but Nashmira has a bad feeling about it, so she wants you to go with her, and she has to stay with you the entire time, a promise she breaks as soon as she gets to the settlement. You chat with a few people and you find out that some of them have been plotting an attack on the city. When you go looking for Rana to let her know what you found out, someone tells you that she was led off by one of the very people who were plotting the riots. The guy wasn't going to get involved himself since he didn't want to get killed, but he points you in the direction they went and you rush off to save your very naive friend. You arrive in time to stop her from getting murdered, and she confesses that the men had told her they were taking her to the rioters' hideout, something you have to be extremely inexperienced to believe, when their bodies started to sway in a weird way like they were doing some type of strange dance before they attacked her. She'd like to talk more about it just in a safer place, and she needs to file a report with the Brass Blades. While she does that, she wants you to tell Nashmira that she's okay and she's sorry for breaking her word and going off on her own. Nashmira is not happy. She's not upset with you, but she definitely plans on dealing with Rana. She is interested in the strange dance that her attackers were doing, but she'll have to wait for Rana to get back to find out more. It doesn't take long for the girl to show up with an excited member of the Blades in tow. Because of what you did, Stone's Throw has settled down. Strangely enough, despite Rana's claims of the men dancing, they all deny it. They do remember their bodies starting to move against their will, but they can't even remember why they had decided to riot or attack the girl. However, after your fight, they seem at peace, like a spirit had possessed them and getting knocked around by you managed it. The soldier believes someone may have added something extra to the criminals' drinks, but they'll get to the bottom of things eventually thanks to your help. But at least for now, it's safe for you to perform. Now, facing her teacher, Rana hangs her head in shame, admitting that despite her training, she had been too scared to do anything when the fighting started. Nashmira understands, but that fear is something that Rana will have to learn to deal with. She has to be able to dance both on stage and in battle. The fact that you were able to use your techniques in combat are the only reason things turned out okay. It wasn't Rana's lack of skill, but her overconfidence that was the problem. The strength of the troop comes from dancing together, and until she understands that, she'll never be ready to move forward. Her words seem harsh, but Nashmira knows the troop's true purpose, and it's not as simple as she made it seem when you first joined. And although she won't explain it now, she believes you'll understand later. For now, she has to prepare for the performance. She's gonna let Rana do this one alone while you work on perfecting your moves, And while you're doing that, she also plans to do a bit of investigating of her own because she believes there's a bit more to find out about the dancing rioters. After Rana puts on a successful show, it's time to head to Gridania, although the incident with the rioters is making Nashmira uncomfortable. So much so that she wants to go to the Adder's Nest as soon as you get to Gridania to see if anything strange has happened there. And like a good teacher, she refuses to tell you why, although she does warn you to stay on your toes. Apparently her hunch is correct, and a group of dusk-white Ellison who prefer to live in the woods instead of the cities like their counterparts, have been holding weird meetings outside of the city. The twin adders don't know what they're doing, but they don't think it's good, since the Dusk-Whites and the citizens of Gridania do not get along at all. Some people think they're planning some type of attack on the city, because every time people you don't like get together, you're always the topic of conversation. You have to be, because clearly you're all they think about. That was sarcasm if you couldn't tell. Ironically enough, these particular Dusk-Whites have been near the place where Nashmira was planning on putting on her show, so of course the matter needs to be investigated. But this time she's coming with the two of you. The Serpent Officer doesn't know what a dance troupe could do if things turn violent, but you dealing with the situation would keep it from looking bad from a political standpoint, so he's more than willing to risk your lives to keep things peaceful. In the South Shroud, people say they've seen the Ellison in question, and they were doing some weird dance moves, which makes Nashmira think that the same thing you saw happen in Ul'dah is happening in Gridania. You find the Dusk-Whites twirling in a circle looking like they just consumed some very potent Resident Evil 3 green herbs, if you know what I mean. They're doing a dance that Nashmira recognizes as the Dance of the Damned. She still won't explain what's going on, but she steps forward to deal with them herself. Her dance moves pulls the darkness out of the Ellison that forms a sprite and attacks her, knocking her down. You step in and deal with it before it can do more damage. She's hurt, but she'll recover. However, she does admit that in her prime, she would have been able to take the thing down with ease. Rana's not so worried about her teacher's defeat as she is about what actually attacked her. She claims she plans on sharing after she finds out a bit more, but first the adders need to be brought up to speed. Of course you do that while Rana takes care of Nashmira's injuries. They weren't that bad, and with a little rest, she'll be as good as new. The Dusk-Whites don't remember anything about anything, not the gatherings they were having, the dancing, and any of that. Since the incident is exactly the same as the one in Ul'dah, Nashmira finally decides to tell you what's going on. The strange dance you've been seeing people do is called the Totentanz, or the Dance of the Damned, and the true mission of all dancers is to remove that dance from existence. When the land is overtaken by calamities and war, people's negative emotions begin to grow. These emotions react with the ether of the world, and they take on a form of their own and spread across the land. The weak and the most miserable people are consumed first, and if they aren't helped, they'll lose control of their own minds and bodies, becoming puppets of this negative ether. They have no clue what they do once the Totentanz consumes them. Some have trampled their own children to death during the dance, while others have danced so hard that they tore off their own arms and legs. It never happens in the middle of a crisis because people don't have time to sulk and pout when all of their energy is spent simply trying to survive. But once things calm down and the immediate threat vanishes, that's when emotions run wild and the Totentanz can take hold. And that's what's been happening in Eorzea. That's the real reason Nashmira brought the troop there. With the Dragon Song War over, and Alamigo more free than it's been in decades, the Totentanz has begun to spread. But the dancers can use their art to draw the darkness out of the people, give it physical form, then destroy it. The dance hasn't struck in centuries, so Nashmira wasn't sure if it had really hit Eorzea, and she didn't want to worry you by telling you that the group you had joined that claimed they danced to fight off people's negative emotions meant that literally. But now that you know the truth, and the dark dance has really begun to spread once again, there's one other thing you should know. The stronger the emotions, the more powerful the negative spirits you'll draw forth. And while Ul'dah and Gridania may have had their share of problems, the issues people have in your next two destinations of Ishgard and Alamigo are far, far worse, which means your attempts to save the people from the Dance of the Damned could cause you to manifest a being with the power of a primal, and nothing says it's only limited to attacking you. Now the time has come for you to head to your third destination, Ishgard. Fortunately, there have been no signs of the dance taking hold in the area, yet. However, the poor people of the city have been getting rowdy, just like in Ul'dah, so there's no telling how long it'll be before the dance does start infecting people. Najmira wants you and Rana to be careful, especially since she's sending you ahead on your own. Her injuries aren't healing as fast as she'd hoped, so she needs a bit of rest before she follows you. Rana's eager to get going, until you arrive and she realizes that Ishgard's weather isn't really suited for barely dressed catgirl dancers. My dancer glamour isn't much better, but the Warrior of Light is more than used to the cold by now. Your first order of business in the city is to meet up with your host at the congregation, and since Rana doesn't know the city at all, she decides that she'll follow you before promptly walking on ahead. I know it's the game's normal way of showing the NPC moving the quest forward, but you can't say that you're going to follow someone then lead first. It's a good way to get lost. The Knight Handaloop is there to greet you, and he's quite surprised to see that you've joined a dancing troupe since the last time you were there you were going toe-to-toe with Nidhogg while wielding a dragon's eye, but Rana assures him that you'll be just as impressive when you start to dance. The Twin Adders already sent word ahead about the Dance of the Damned, and while the Ishgardians found it hard to believe, seeing you taking the threat seriously is all they needed to do the same. They've already followed Najmira's instructions and gathered the commoners and put them at the front row of your performance, although they have no idea why they had to do that. Rana explains how the Totems hits people who have the strongest negative emotions first, and people with money and power tend to be a lot happier than those who have to struggle. So if you can draw the negative ether from the influential commoners before the dance takes full effect, then you may be able to make a domino effect that stops it from spreading further. It's a good theory, one that's worth trying at least. Your performance is set to take place outside of the Gates of Judgment, just in case something goes wrong, and a large number of people have gathered to see you in action. Rana starts to dance, and as the people watch, dark monsters form in the air above them. They start to panic. Who wouldn't when something like that happens? But Rana convinces them that it's all a part of the show while you step forward and do your part by taking the creatures down. The audience admits that they had been skeptical at first, but after seeing the performance, they can't deny how good it was. And it made them feel more at peace than they had been before, and they can't even explain why. Seeing the smiling faces means the world to Rana. Being able to make an audience happy is extremely important to any performer, and the fact that you beat the shadows before the Totems could take over makes all the training you've been doing more than worthwhile. But since it's all over, Rana is super eager to get out of the cold and back to Gridania where the weather is more dancer friendly. Back in Gridania, Rana freaks out when she realizes Najmira is gone, but one of the other members of the troupe calms her down by letting her know that their leader is fine. She left to meet up with her friend. Her friend is also familiar with the Totems, and she's been studying the situation in Alamigo for the troupe. Najmira is scouting out an area for the performance there, and she wants you to keep practicing until she calls you. Rana's shocked that her teacher trusts her enough to not even have to wait to see how things went in Ishgard before heading off on another mission, especially after how badly she messed up in Ul'dah, but she intends to do her best to not let her teacher down again. Since Alamigo's people have suffered even more tragedy than the people of Ishgard in recent years, the negative ether you may draw out of them with your performance could end up being incredibly powerful, so Rana plans on increasing her training until Najmira gives her a call. It doesn't take long for a Moogle to send a letter telling you where Najmira wants the troupe to go. You will all be heading to Alagana. With the town being so close to the border, the fear the people have of the Garleans returning is more than strong enough to draw the Totems, but Najmira told Rana that she's gotten all of the most important people in Alagana to attend, so if all goes well, the troupe can keep the dance from taking over just like you did in Ishgard. She also said that the fate of the troupe is in you and Rana's hands, so don't screw up. Out in Alagana, the crowd gathers around, excited to see your performance. After the introductions, Rana begins to dance, and like in Ishgard, her moves draw out the negative emotions in the people. But Alamegans have had years to cultivate their fears, and the being that Rana draws forth is far more powerful than what you faced in the other cities. The people are terrified at the sight, but after assuring them that it's all part of the show, the two of you do battle with the monster while the troupe plays a merry tune in the background. The etheric shadow is so powerful that the two of you alone aren't enough to bring it down. Fortunately, Najmira shows up to lend a hand, finally fully recovered from her injuries and ready to show you all the full extent of a dancer's power. Combining your talents, the three of you destroy the shadow before it could run amok. With the performance over and the Totems fended off, Rana fangirls about the fact that she got to perform with Najmira, who admits that after her embarrassing display in Gridania where she got beat by a sprite, she doubled her training so she could get back in shape. She does say that as good as the two of you have become, she could have sat back and let you handle things, which is just flattery because we were definitely about to die before she jumped in, a fact that her friend points out when she shows up. Turns out Nashmira's contact in Eorzea was Falaman, Minfilia's adopted mother. Since she was a performer a long time ago, it does kinda make sense. When she'd heard that you had joined the troupe, she hadn't expected it, but apparently no one expected to see you stop doing fetch quests to twirl around in tiny outfits. Apparently after the incident in Ul'dah, where Falaman had inadvertently caused Minfilia's father to get killed, she had hid in Thavnair for a while. That was where she met Nashmira. Since she was a singer and Nashmira was a dancer, they worked well together. So when she was asked to help plan the troupe's tour of Eorzea, she was more than happy to do it. Your conversation is cut short as an Alamegan who you helped when you first began working with Lys to free the nation from Garlemald comes up to congratulate you on your performance. He's confused by your transition from adventurer to dancer too, but since no one really understands that the dancers are just adventurers who twirl, I understand their confusion. Still, he's happy he got to see the foreign performers, and the peace the troupe brought to the people will be more than helpful with all the work they have left to do. With the threat of the Totentons over and done with, the tour is now complete, and with that, it is time for the troupe to go back home. Or at least it should be, but Nashmira decides that staying in Eorzea may be beneficial since there's no telling when the dance will strike again. Rana's excited that she'll get to dance with you some more, but that'll have to wait. You are still an adventurer after all, and you still have plenty of things to do, like helping your friends get back from the First. After all of your battles against Light Wardens and Sin Eaters on the First, you return to the Source to check on some of your friends, just to see how well they've been doing without you. Things have been going well for Troupe Falcium in your absence. They've been touring all over Eorzea, dealing with the Totentons whenever it pops up, and since they've become so famous, a lot of people have showed up to join them. Nashmira has had her hands full with training new recruits, but fortunately Rana's been helping out. A lot. The girl has stepped up so much that Nashmira has decided to make a few changes, although she doesn't want to discuss them in the city with so many people around. Outside of the city, Nashmira lets the two of you know that the troupe has been invited to perform in Kugane, and they've been offered quite a bit of money to do it. However, with the threat of the Totentons still alive and well in Eorzea, Nashmira has to train the next generation of dancers, so she decides the time has come to hand leadership of the troupe over to Rana. That way, the troupe can travel to the east, while she trains new dancers in Eorzea. Rana freaks out. She doesn't think she's ready, especially since her teacher specifically said she had a long way to go only a short time ago. But her skills have improved a lot since then, and Nashmira thinks she's ready to take over. But she's not going to force her to do it. She wants her to take some time and think it over before making her decision. Rana really doesn't know what to do. The opportunity is too good to pass up, but she's also scared out of her mind. Since you pretty much never panic, or show much emotion at all for that matter, she turns to you for advice. And since she's most at home when she dances, you tell her to calm her mind by doing just that, dancing. She likes the idea, but she wants you to do it with her. Since she's been looking forward to dancing with you again for a while, you give in to her request. With the sun setting in the background and a surprising boost to some of the game's graphics, the two of you twirl and dance, moving to the rhythm of the music that is coming from absolutely nowhere since the two of you are alone. Honestly, anyone passing by would think you were both nuts. I've seen people dancing to no music, and no matter how creative their moves look, they still look like idiots. However, we can hear the music, so the scene is great. And the two of you dance until Rana's stress and fear fade, lost in the movements of the dance. The flawless nature of her technique proves that Nashmira wasn't exaggerating when she said that Rana was ready to lead. The only thing holding her back was her own mind. With your help, Rana makes her decision and races back to Limsa to let everyone know. While the rest of the troupe is surprised to see Rana taking over, if Nashmira thinks it's what's best for the troupe, then they have no objections. With that done, the troupe prepares to head to Kugane to put on their first show with their new leader, while Nashmira continues to prepare Eorzea for the inevitable return of the Dance of the Damned. Since we're going to be heading to Thavnair and Endwalker, I'm pretty sure they're going to expand this story a lot. But until then, this concludes the story of the Dancer. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video.